Joined by Natasha Sideris, who's the founder of Tashas restaurant. Good evening and thank you so much for your time. Firstly, talk to us about this collective when it comes to the restaurant industry that you've now been able to bring together as you try and lobby for some of the changes.
So firstly, thank you for having me on tonight. I think what's really important about the collective that we formed is that I've read somewhere that there's about 90,000 restaurants in South Africa, and of those 90,000, and we're still confirming the statistics, but even if we're close to those numbers, there's about 7,000 sit-down restaurants. So we're quite a small group, and we've got a unique set of challenges, and we have formed a collective together with franchisees, franchisors, some individual standalone restaurants to try and have our needs heard and hopefully met, because there are unique challenges that we face.
Sure. It's interesting because in some of the document that you've put together, you list, of course, where you think things may be able to change. But I found that there isn't really clarity in terms of how safety measures are going to be adhered to while you operate, should you be given permission to do so, whether it's till later at night or even with a collect and pick up.
Yeah. So I think that the sit-down restaurants are really well placed to be able to adhere to those standards. We already adhere to quite strict health and safety measures in any case, and that was pre-COVID. And I think post-COVID, we've all put together these amazing training manuals, and that's one of the things that we'll be sharing with the people who've joined the collective. And it would mean definitely spacing your tables, having hand sanitizers, making sure the staff are wearing masks, making the guys in the back areas are wearing masks and gloves. So basically, I think that it would be relatively easy, and I'm quite fortunately placed because I am in Dubai, and we are about to open our restaurants here. And I think those health and safety measures are relatively easy to put in place as long as the staff have been trained and as long as the operators are adhering to those standards. So for me, of course, we have to respect government's decision, but I would like to see restaurants opening with at least 70% capacity. Because, you know, at the 30% capacity or just with a collect and go, even at that stage, sit-down restaurants do not become really feasible to run. We'll be running losses. That's really the reality of it.
Part of how you make your money, of course, is through the number of people that you're able to get into your restaurant at any given time. So when you reduce the number of people inside, do you have an understanding of exactly how this will work? Because social distancing itself requires at least 1 meter. For some restaurants, that would mean that being able to serve only 5 tables if it's to be strictly adhered to.
Well, that's why I think that it's absolutely critical that together with these measures that are being put in place, that there's an understanding that we need help with some of the costs. And, you know, those costs come down to landlords' costs, with banks helping us with some fees. You know, all of those things play a critical role because, you know, you need your maximum capacity to trade. And if you're a 100-seater restaurant, if you can only seat 30 people, you know, the numbers do not make sense. So it'll be a big challenge. I think a huge challenge for sit-down restaurants that only have, you know, maybe 20 or 30 seats. What does that mean for them? And I can only speak for what's happened here, and we'd have to wait to see what gets gazetted. But I certainly would think that while we are slowly ramping up, we're going to need assistance. So the assistance is immediate assistance while we close, and then assistance when we open to slowly ramp up our businesses, because I don't think things are going to return to normal for a while.
So does that mean that the cost of food in sit-down restaurants is possibly going to be much higher than it was before, simply to make up for some of the shortfalls that you're also experiencing on your end?
Well, I don't think, and I certainly wouldn't advise that to restaurants. I don't think that it should become higher. It could be something that some operators are considering doing. We also got to consider the fact that people are watching their pockets. Everyone's been hit hard by COVID, and we just want some bums on seats, so to speak. So we just want the patrons to come in, and we certainly don't want to be chasing them away by inflated prices. So I think you've got to look at other ways to be assisting with the bottom line, and that means reduced menus. That means items that need less prep. It means obviously less staff on a shift. So those are all things that we can do to assist ourselves. And I think that's really important, is what a restaurateur is going to do to assist themselves. But more importantly, we're looking outward for even more help, because we are a vibrant industry, 7,000 or 10,000 restaurants. We employ millions of people, and we need help to keep the industry alive.
On the issue of staff, there's one thing that you mentioned, especially under your labor, that you would like a review of the minimum wage approach for all restaurant staff roles. What does that mean?
So it most certainly does not mean that we are not happy with the minimum wage. In fact, we support the minimum wage, and we would encourage all our, and I call them members, but all of the people who are joining our collective to adhere to those minimum wages. We'd like to see some costs that we definitely cannot control being reduced so that we could even pay more, or that we look at remuneration not only as a wage, but what are we doing for our staff in terms of insurance? What are we doing for our staff in terms of funeral funds? Those are all things that need to be looked at, and we're just saying, listen, we want a seat at the table. I'm certainly no labor expert. We do have people on our team that will be able to assist us. We just want a seat at the table to say, how can we help our staff even more?
Oh, so if we are... Sure, go ahead.
Sorry. No, you go ahead.
So you're certainly not suggesting that there should be a review in terms of some staff at restaurants earning less than minimum wage simply because of the kind of pressure that the industry is under?
100% not, and I need to make that very clear. We support the minimum wage. In fact, if the margins could get better and we could see some of our costs reduced, it would mean a better living wage for everyone. And not only a living wage, it would mean an upskilling. It would mean insurance policies that we could take out. We could just do so much more for our staff. But the margins, even pre-COVID, when we have to be realistic, restaurants run on very low margins, and the margins were already very tight. So what's now happened is COVID, all it's done is taken a magnifying glass and said, okay, these were your issues. Now the issues have just been multiplied.
Staying with the issue of staff, you also talk here about a mix of South African versus foreign nationals. I'm assuming that you're talking about the ratio of both that you have working at any given restaurant. How big an issue is that for your industry?
Well, look, I think for me it's quite a simple solution. As long as the people that we are employing have got work permits that have been given by the Department of Home Affairs, then we should be allowed to employ them. I am in full support, however, if there's a certain percentage of South Africans that need to be employed inside the restaurants, I am in support of that. But we also have to be realistic about the fact that sometimes the guys who are coming to us for jobs, who've got a special skill set, we should be able to employ them, provided they have the right paperwork and provided they obviously have the right work permits.
What happens if you're not allowed to be part of level 3, even if it is for, collect and pick up orders at sit-down restaurants?
Wow. I'm in a unique position because I'm both a franchisor and a franchisee. I own my own restaurants, and that was really a purposeful decision because I wanted to understand the grassroots issues. And I can tell you that we are incurring losses. The losses will be unsustainable, and it's going to see a lot of restaurants shutting. We need to be able to open, and with a commitment on our part that we adhere to social distancing, of course, and that we adhere to the highest standards of health and hygiene, and that we're putting all of those precautions in place. We want our customers to feel safe.
Natasha,
but
sure.
I think what people have to understand is that there's a limit where it becomes feasible for a restaurant to open, and that there's certain break-evens. And even at the 30%, that becomes questionable.